Who's here now? A lot of people have been wondering, where is Caitlin Clark? Why isn't Caitlin Clark saying anything? Why isn't she standing up for herself versus Stephanie White, versus the Indiana Fever front office that is sabotage?
Where is Caitlin Clark? That's the question thousands of people have been screaming into their phones for weeks. The most famous basketball player in the country, in the middle of the biggest controversy of her career, and total silence.
People are wondering why Caitlin Clark isn't saying anything. Christene Brinnen just revealed why Caitlin Clark has remained silent. We got to get into it. Welcome to Keep the Vision.
So Christene Brinnen says she knows exactly why. And Brinnen isn't some random voice online. She wrote the book on Caitlin Clark. She was in Indiana with the Fever. She's talked to Clark directly about this exact thing more than once. But the reason she gives is not the one Clark's angriest fans want to hear. And we'll get to the part that actually flips this whole story on its head a little later, because it turns out it's not really about staying quiet at all. It's about leverage.
Caitlin Clark never speaks on this. We're all talking about Caitlin Clark. Everybody's talking. You know her. You did a book on her. I think it's a great move. Does she not speak on it because she doesn't pay attention, or does she not speak on it because she's well versed in that, or is that just her personality to just keep it moving?
That's Dan Dakich laying out the real puzzle. Because there are basically two ways to read Caitlin Clark's silence. Version 1, she doesn't care, she's floating above all of it. She doesn't even see the noise. Version 2, she sees every single word of it, and she's making a deliberate choice to say nothing. Those are wildly different stories. One is a woman who's checked out. The other is a woman playing a much longer game than the people yelling at her online. And you can't understand the pressure on her to speak without understanding what her fans are actually angry about. Their grievances come in a specific stack that the Indiana Fever front office is quietly working against her. That she's been painted as the villain in on-court incidents where they say she was the target. That a wave of racism accusations got aimed at her fan base when they feel she was the one who got hit. Now, a lot of that is contested. The front office sabotage claim is an allegation from fans and commentators, not something anyone inside that building has ever admitted. But the volume on that side has gotten deafening, and that's the storm Clark is refusing to step into.
Yeah, I asked her that a couple times when I first met her here in Washington in her rookie season, before there was even a thought of a book that I was doing in June of 2024. And I've asked her about it again when I was reporting the book and was in Indiana all the time and with the Fever wherever they were after the Olympics in 24. And, you know, she said that she can't avoid it. Of course, she's got the TV on and then she'll see some conversation about it or what have you. But that she really wants to stick to what's important, and basketball and family and friends.
There it is. That's Brennan's answer, straight from the source. Clark told her she can't avoid it. She's got the phone, she sees the conversation, of course it reaches her. But she wants to stick to what she calls the important stuff: basketball, family, friends. That's the entire philosophy in one sentence. And notice what Brinnen is describing, because it's more disciplined than it first sounds. This is not a woman who's oblivious. Brinnen is telling you Clark sees all of it, and chooses restraint anyway, night after night. That's a completely different kind of hard. It's easy to stay calm when you have no idea people are coming for you. It's a lot harder to scroll past it every single evening, read the worst things strangers can say about you, and still keep your mouth shut on purpose. And think about what that costs a competitor like her. Clark is, by every account, one of the most fiercely competitive athletes in the sport. The same fire that makes her pull up from the logo is the fire that would make almost anyone want to fire back when they feel wronged. Choosing not to isn't passive. For someone wired like her, staying silent might be the hardest thing on the whole list.
She is remarkable. And I say this in the book, I'll say it again to you. The WNBA is so lucky to have her. It's just so lucky.
The WNBA is so lucky to have her. Brinnen says it twice, and it lands like a warm compliment, but sit with what she's actually implying underneath it. She's saying the league got handed the biggest star in the sport's history at the exact moment that star is being put through the ringer, and that star has decided not to burn the whole place down. And look at how split the audience is on this. On one side, you've got Clark's fan base who see every no comment as proof she's the only adult in the room, taking the high road while everyone else throws elbows. On the other side, you've got people who think the silence is overrated, that she's being handed sainthood just for not posting, and that the constant framing of Clark as the pure victim is its own kind of spin. Both of those camps are enormous, they're loud, and they've turned basically every Fever game into a proxy war. That's the context Brinnen steps into when she calls the league lucky. She's not just praising Clark, she's telling the WNBA it's sitting on a gift it keeps mishandling.
Caitlin Clark could be bashing everyone. She could have the personality to just go out there and say what she thinks. With the millions and millions of people who follow her, that would be would create a very difficult situation for the WNBA. If whatever she thought, she did.
And here's where Brinnen says the quiet part out loud. Clark could be bashing everyone. She's got the personality to walk to a microphone and say exactly what she thinks, and she's got millions upon millions of followers who would take her side in a heartbeat. Brennan's point is blunt. If Clark ever aimed all of that at the WNBA, it would create a very difficult situation for the league. And this isn't just about a big social following. It's about money, real money. Think about what Clark has reportedly meant to this league in cold numbers. Her games drove record television audiences in her rookie year. Her presence has been tied to sold-out arenas that used to sit half empty. She signed what's been widely reported as a Nike deal worth around $28 million with her own signature shoe on the way. When a single player is that tied to the ratings, the ticket sales, and the national relevance of an entire league, her voice isn't just loud, it's financially load-bearing. So read Brennan's line again. A single post from Caitlin Clark could do more damage to the WNBA than any opponent on the floor ever could. That's the leverage I told you we'd come back to, and it's exactly why her silence is not weakness. It's a loaded gun she keeps choosing not to fire. Every game she plays without a word, the pressure builds, and the value of what she's not saying only goes up.
That. If what Alyssa Thomas is saying, you know, I think there is confusion because Alyssa Thomas said in that press briefing availability she had yesterday, she said that she hadn't heard from Kathy Engelbert or hadn't talked to Kathy Engelbert. Well, then the league puts out all that they had text messages and they had been in touch.
Now this piece is important because it's where the facts actually get messy, and I want to be fair about it. Brinnen brings up the Alyssa Thomas situation. In a press availability, Thomas reportedly said she hadn't heard from Commissioner Kathy Engelbert, hadn't spoken to her. Then the league put out word that there had been text messages, that they had in fact been in touch. So you've got a direct contradiction hanging in the air, and both of those things can't be fully true at once. I'm not going to tell you I know exactly what was said in those texts, because I don't, and neither does anyone yelling about it online. What matters for this story is the pattern. In the middle of all that confusion, all those competing statements, the one player who has said nothing publicly, who has handed the internet zero new ammunition, is Caitlin Clark. Everyone else is talking. She's the one who isn't.
How lucky the WNBA is that the one who is doing all of this is Caitlin Clark. There are very few people, I think, in our world, whether they're sports fan or in any walk of life, who at that heated moment wouldn't have gone off.
How lucky the WNBA is that the one doing all of this is Caitlin Clark. And this is the through line running under everything Brinnen says. Take almost anyone else on the planet, drop them into that heated a moment with that big a megaphone, and they go off. They fire back. They subtweet. They name names on a podcast the next morning. We have watched exactly that play out with star athletes across every sport. One frustrated quote or one late-night post that becomes the whole story for a week and drags an entire franchise into a mess. Brennan's argument is that Clark's restraint is basically unheard of for someone holding that much firepower, and that instead of testing how long she'll keep taking it, the league should be counting its blessings that she has.
Look at that moment. People can find it all over. You can watch those 2 minutes and see that and see what Caitlin Clark did to basically not throw Kennedy Carter under the bus, to not bring the wrath of hundreds of thousands from Twitter and all the other platforms against her, Kennedy Carter, And this, of course, is a black woman and a white woman.
And to prove the pattern isn't new, Brinnen points all the way back to the Kennedy Carter moment. If you don't remember it, that was one of the earliest flashpoints of Clark's rookie year, a hard hit during a game that blew up online for days. Brennen's read is that Clark deliberately took the temperature down. She didn't throw Kennedy Carter under the bus. She didn't sick hundreds of thousands of angry followers on her. And then Brinnen says the thing a lot of people tiptoe around, so I'll be clear about how she framed it. She points out that this was, in her words, a black woman and a white woman, and that it's unfortunate race gets pulled into it, but that's where the conversation went. That racial fault line has sat underneath a huge amount of the Caitlin Clark discourse from day one. And Brennen's whole point is that Clark, in that specific moment, actively diffused something that could have gotten a lot uglier.
Caitlin Clark diffused the entire situation for an entire nation at that moment.
Yeah, Caitlin Clark really done been saving this league. She been saving this league. With all the stuff she's been going through, she hasn't blasted.
Clark diffused it for an entire nation. That's a huge claim, and you can decide for yourself how much of it you buy. But even her sharpest critics would struggle to point to a single moment where Clark poured gasoline on a fire instead of water. Over and over, the pattern Brinnen describes is identical. Hot situation, cold water. She takes the shot, absorbs the hit, and gets back on defense. And that consistency is exactly why the silence reads as a choice and not an accident. One quiet game is a mood. A full season of it, through everything that's been thrown at her, is a strategy.
But when you look at the bigger picture, at this moment in women's sports history, this inflection point, this watershed moment, the thing that so many of us who have a certain age, Dan, have been waiting to see happen, wow, there she is.
But now the conversation takes a turn that's far bigger than one player staying calm. Brinnen starts describing this as a watershed moment in women's sports, an inflection point. The thing people who have followed this game for decades have been waiting their entire lives to see finally arrive. And once you frame it that way, the stakes stop being about a single press conference and start being about something structural. They become a question about who actually holds the power in women's basketball right now. Not who scores the most or wins the title, who has the juice. And the honest answer to that question is one the league might not love hearing out loud.
What would happen if, in your mind, take off your fact finding, all right? This is just Christene Brinnen, Dan Dockich having a chat. What do you think would happen if Caitlin Clark said, you know what, and her dad or mom said, you know what, we can start our own league or we can do whatever. If she left the WNBA, what do you think?
And there's the question nobody sitting in a league office ever wants asked out loud. What happens if Caitlin Clark leaves? What if she, or the people around her, decided to go build something of their own instead? Dockich frames it as just a hypothetical, a couple of people having a chat, and Brinnen is careful to echo that they are not reporting that anything is in motion. But pay attention to why the question even lands. A few years ago, nobody would have floated it, because no single player was big enough to make it anything but a joke. The fact that two serious basketball people can sit there and treat it as a reasonable thing to wonder about tells you exactly how far the ground has shifted under this league's feet.
She's certainly the one player who could do that. You know, Paige Becker's folks can't do that.
Shout out to Angry Fan Sports. He been saying she need to do that.
And the UConn people, I finally been saying this.
And here's the line that should make every executive sit up. Brinnen says Clark is certainly the one player who could do that. Not one of a few, the one. And then she draws the contrast directly, that Paige Bucher's people couldn't pull it off, that the UConn Stars couldn't pull it off. Brinnen even goes further in the full conversation and suggests some of that world can't quite get over the fact that the single biggest name in the history of the sport didn't come out of their program. Whether you agree or not, the underlying point is brutal in its simplicity. There's a hierarchy of star power in this league, and exactly one person sits at a level where walking away is actually on the table.
So Caitlin Clark has the sponsors, she has the fan base to go and start a barnstorming league, go around, you know, like the Harlem Globetrotter. I'm not saying she's going to, folks. I want to keep saying that. I'm not saying that for all our friends out there. You know, an awful announcement thing. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, though, that there is one person who could do it. One person that, you know, It's all kind of fun. One person who could do it is Caitlin.
One person who could do it. Brinnen keeps circling back to it and keeps clarifying she is not saying Clark is going to do it. She is saying Clark is the only one who possibly could. And that is the real reason her silence carries so much weight. It is not that she has nothing to say. It is that she has the sponsors, she has the fan base, she has the individual gravity to build something outside the WNBA if she ever chose to. The way barnstorming teams packed arenas generations ago, before the modern leagues even existed. And history says this is the hard part. Plenty of rival women's leagues have been floated and folded because star power alone was never enough to pull an audience away from the establishment. What makes this moment different is that, for maybe the first time, the audience isn't loyal to the league, it's loyal to the player. Most athletes are completely dependent on the league that employs them. The WNBA, in a very real sense, has become dependent on her. And when one side needs the other far more than the reverse, the quiet one is the one holding every card. That is the whole game, and it is why saying nothing might be the single smartest thing Clark has done.
Indiana Fever are promoting this whole South Carolina thing. They got Ty Harris, Aaliyah Boston, Raven Johnson, and it's almost like they're trying to now win over South Carolina fans and become South Carolina of the WNBA. Like, I think it's all ridiculous.
Which brings us to the part that has a big chunk of Fever fans genuinely uneasy. In that same conversation, there's a push toward a whole South Carolina-flavored direction for the franchise, leaning into former Gamecocks like Aaliyah Boston, Tihaina Pauapau, and Raven Johnson. And the read from some fans is that the team is quietly reshaping its identity around a different core, almost trying to become the South Carolina of the WNBA. Now, plenty of people think that's a reach, and building around Aaliyah Boston is hardly a scandal. She's an all-star. But if you're someone who already believes this front office hasn't fully protected Clark, watching them lean into a whole new identity while she stays silent in the middle of it, that lands very differently. So here's where I'll leave it with you. If Caitlin Clark really is the one player on earth with the power to walk away and take the sport's entire audience with her, then every week she stays quiet and keeps hooping. Is she being loyal to a league that some say hasn't protected her, or is she quietly stacking the leverage to leave it on her own terms one day? Tell me exactly what you think down in the comments, because I honestly go back and forth on this one. And if you want more breakdowns like this, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next one.